And I want to first ask you to highlight some of your accomplishments on the commission for your last term, and tell us what does another McPhee term look like? What do you want to accomplish that you haven't yet accomplished on the commission?
Oh my gosh. What I have accomplished is actually cumulative 30 years living here in the city of Weston and being extremely active for 30 years. My children, my oldest, who's now 35, got sick while she was in school, and it kind of spurred me on to community activism and staying active in our community as far as different issues that would come up. So I've worked on issues such as indoor air quality in schools and having schools remediated. I started the Veterans of Weston group here in Weston. I started food distributions in the Bonaventure area, and that came about during COVID when I realized that we had a lot of seniors that couldn't get out. So I worked with BSO to be able to bring meals for a week at a time to their homes. But then it continued on in realizing that we still had food insecurities in some areas while, the struggles of paying for insurance and all these things that were taking place. So we continued there. Mm-hmm. I supported the stopping the high rises built in Weston Hills. I always support our first responders. Started the Commissioner's Corner, which was a promise during my first election campaign to make sure that our city was as transparent and approachable as possible. So the third Thursday of each month, anybody and businesses here in Weston can come and meet with me at the Bonaventure Town Center from 6:30 through 8 p.m. Talk to me about anything, whether you have an issue, a complaint, or want to just say hi. So we work on issues such as that. I've made sure, and it started through COVID as well as being the only Hispanic on the dais, to make sure that all communication was in English and Spanish. I realized that many of our residents getting these robocalls couldn't understand it anyway. They were in English. So we made sure that took place, made sure that outdoor seating was appropriate and available for businesses if they needed and wanted it during COVID. 2 years of my first term was through COVID, which is really pretty interesting. I mean, to go through a pandemic for your first term was pretty surprising, but it taught me a lot. Yeah, it taught me a lot and had a lot of experiences that possibly I would never have had, literally down to Zoom. And commission meetings being on Zoom. So quite a few different things. And I'd like to continue on. We have term limits in our city, 2 4-year terms. And I'd like to continue what I started, which is making sure that we protect our property values, our tax dollars, keeping our families safe. City of Weston now has the strictest sexual violator code in the state of Florida. I was also able to close a loophole in Broward County for sexual violators. Each city now knows and is notified when a sexual violator comes and stays there, because each city does have.
You're talking about people that are on the state registry list?
Yes.
Okay.
So if they come to Broward County, they have to register in Fort Lauderdale with the sheriff. And now the sheriff will notify each city of the person that's staying in their city. So that police department can then contact that individual and make sure that they realize what the laws are for their city.
Okay. Tell me more about the Weston Hills project that got turned down. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, there was a proposed project. I wasn't on the dais at that time, but they had a proposed project to build condos. And immediately I realized the impact that would have on the associations financially and selling their homes or units, as well as the overcrowding in our schools. So I was very active in protesting.
So this was a large condo project?
Yes, to be built in the Weston Hills community.
Mhm.
Yeah. So luckily that was defeated, and ultimately, which I believe we would have had schools, possible associations removed from Cypress Bay boundary. I know for one community in particular, for a year, they had a pause in being permitted into Cypress Bay, and they didn't sell a home for almost a year. So it does affect your property values.
Sure. In your questionnaire, which you sent back to us, you wrote, I'm quoting here, rezoning, redevelopment, and new construction should not be carried out without judicious and vigilant scrutinization as to the effects of the specific area, our residents' safety, and the city as a whole. One thing that clashes with, and we've seen a lot of very cautious commissioners and people running for commission regarding development in your community. We've talked to people in Cooper City, Plantation. We hear this across the board from the discussions we've had so far. One thing, though, that's a problem also in almost every community is affordable housing. How do you ensure that residents can find an affordable place to live while at the same time slowing down development and making sure that density doesn't grow out of control?
Well, right now in the city of Weston, even while you're hearing other cities having housing issues, I'm not seeing that in Weston. Mm-hmm. We're a city with approximately 25,000 residential units, according to a website that I found, and approximately 1.9% of that are apartments that are available for rent. So I don't see that crisis in the city of Weston. Okay.
You also said regarding vacation rentals that it's up to code enforcement to take a look at these and make sure that your local ordinances on vacation rentals are enforced. We've heard from others that enforcement can be lax, and there's also some confusion between code enforcement and police on this matter. Do you think the rules you currently have in place are enough?
I'm not sure if you're talking about in general for even other cities, or are you saying that you've heard those comments for the city of Weston? In the city of Weston, we have Chapter 81, which enforces vacation rentals. I'm very active in the association industry as a whole, and each year this issue comes up, and we try to explain to our legislators that every area is different. What's good for the Fort Lauderdale area right next to the beach might be great for short-term rentals, but inland here in the city of Weston, we are a neighborhood community with families, raising our families, going to our neighborhood schools. We're not a vacation destination. We are a home. We are a small town community, raising our families here. And yes, I do think that the city of Weston has put themselves out there to make sure that they're protecting areas in the city of Weston that do not have associations where they can protect themselves, because those documents actually have verbiage in there stating what they're allowed or not allowed to do. So the city of Weston enacted an ordinance for areas specifically that don't have documents, that may not be in an association, where they can fall back on making sure those vacation rentals are registered and following our city ordinances.
Have you met at any time with your opponent in forums or anything like that? For the record, we invited Mr. Ortega to join us today. We have not heard back from him, and he has not turned in the questionnaire we sent him either. Have you met him at all?
No, I've seen him possibly in passing in places, but no, I have not. I have not seen him. Other than that,
okay. What's your relationship like with the rest of the commission and Mayor Brown?
I would think in general, pretty good. The mayor, since this election has taken place, seems to be pushing more of a political agenda, although our seats are considered nonpartisan. Other than that, I'm not seeing much of an issue. It's a fact, particularly in this election cycle, that nonpartisan races are becoming more and more politicized. School board races across the state are an obvious example. But here in Weston,
it is nonpartisan race. Parties are not announced, but the two commissioners who have opponents against them, the opponents are both Republicans, and the commissioners are not. Do you see that as coincidence?
I don't think it's a coincidence, but I think it's very misguided in that if anyone took a look at my voting history, they would very clearly see I vote based on what's good and wanted by the residents of this city. I do not play partisan politics, delve into that side of it when it comes to votes. It's strictly what's good for the residents of this city and this city.
You mentioned that Mayor Brown has made some more partisan comments this election, and you can see on social media that's true. Are you aware of whether the mayor recruited your opponent to run against you or recruited a challenger to run against Byron Jaffe?
Only from other people. So I cannot definitely say that came from her, but just from other people stating that.
Did you know that the mayor's husband has financially given to one of Jaffe's opponents?
I've heard that.
Okay. And is that opponent, Dee Dee Reyes-Greenstein, has she and your opponent, Ortega, do they campaign together or anything like that?
It's my understanding, actually, on doors that I've knocked on, I've been told that, yes, they have campaigned together. It's very sad when you have municipal races and you take a city and you try to divide it on politics, especially a small city of 68,000 people here in Broward County. My first election, 2018, is when I believe it started. My election speech was geared around trying to stop that going forward and trying to start a new line in that party politics has to stay out of it. People must vote for the most qualified candidates, and that's where you will get the strongest candidates and keep our property values safe, keep our tax money safe, keep our families safe. Voting party politics or for people that, you know nothing about or their record, it makes no sense to me as a voting person. I want to see what your substance is, where you stand, what have you done?
You said voters, regardless of party, should vote for the strongest candidate. What makes you the strongest candidate in this race?
Living here for 30 years and staying active in this city for 30 years, regardless of knowing that one day I would run for commissioner. I have protected our property values. I have protected our tax dollars. I have protected our families by the votes that I have made and the programs that I have put in place. I attend, obviously, before I became a commissioner, commission meetings and stayed engaged in the community and continue on now. So I think my record speaks very loud, very clear as to the type of person I am and what I have done and what they can expect of me.
Okay. You mentioned in your we asked you for in your questionnaire for your top 3 issues in the city of Weston. There we are. Sorry, I was just bringing up your questionnaire. There we are. So you put that you're currently working on approving a city budget, and you want to keep the millage rate the same or lower. In the current budget, it will be the same as it was that time before. Is that right?
Yes, well, we just had our first vote on it. Has to have a second vote, which will be October 1st. First vote did pass 3.34. Expect it to stay the same, 3.34. I can't see the votes changing from the first to the second. So this will be the 5th year in a row that we stay the same millage rate through a pandemic, I'm proud to say. And we're in good standing in the city of Weston. I'm very proud of that fact.
And finally, we covered your second point, which was overdevelopment, and finally, schools and safety. Your first point there was not actually. I mean, you went on to talk about school resource officers and nurses in schools, but your very first point under that was requests for indoor air quality remediation. Usually, when you talk about schools and safety, the air quality is not the very first thing that comes up. So why was that the big issue that you mentioned right out of the starting gate?
I have been active in this issue for 20 years in Broward County, to the point of getting pictures out, samples out from schools and having schools remediated, to having tools for schools implemented, where before Cypress was built, I met with the incoming principal to go over issues and ideas and thoughts. Some schools had to be slowed down in their building construction and opening to make sure that we had proper indoor air quality taken care of. And the grand jury report that's out now actually refers a little bit to indoor air quality issues. It's a major factor for our teachers, administration, and students, where they go most of their day enclosed in these rooms to have safe and healthy environments to learn and to teach. And it's completely unacceptable ever for us to have rooms with leaks in the ceiling ongoing, mold ongoing, and for our children and our staff to be sick and come to classes like that and try to learn in those environments. It's unacceptable.
Do you see problems like that in Weston in some schools?
Absolutely. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, I believe, in Broward County. Some areas much worse than others, but I'm once again seeing these issues and hearing these issues from teachers. It's everywhere. And the grand jury report, it's so significant that the grand jury report is actually speaking of it.
Yeah, the grand jury report that resulted in 4 of the current school board members being removed from office mentioned a lot about the $800 million construction bond. Is it your experience that in Weston, money for repairing schools has been slow in getting processed and projects are slow in getting done? Absolutely.
We were promised, if that passed, we would see the portables removed at the elementary schools. We still have the portables at the elementary schools. Have they been replaced with newer versions that don't have holes in the floors and mold dripping down on the walls behind pictures? Yes, but I do not believe that these are safe and appropriate areas for our children and our teachers, especially that they have to leave the safety of the concrete buildings to go into portables. At what point do portables no longer become portables? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Because we have schools with all those levels of years and still have portables.
So are you saying that the bond construction money went to replacing old dilapidated portables with new portables?
No, that was done slowly, I guess, through the whole remediation issues with indoor air quality problems. But as the grand jury once again stated, the bond money was not properly spent or utilized at the time period that it should have. Obviously, everything nowadays is much more. That same $800 million is not going to buy you what it purchased when it was implemented.
Okay. All right. I think that's just about all I need, unless there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, I'm very thankful that you gave me this opportunity to answer some questions and possibly help some residents see a little bit more into, questions and answers that I had.
Okay, well, great.
And answers.
I appreciate your time very much. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.